Whoa. It's episode 3, and I'm exhausted. Here we go. 3 eps in. We're back. Quickly, we're back. Tommy and D, we are back. And today, our Rushmore that we're covering is...
We're talking all about rock singers. Those front men and women out there leading the charge on stage.
Get the production value.
The production value is getting up there. Speaking of, we're going to be changing. We've decided we're going to change the gold color. The next time you see us, the gold is going to be a different color. We're not going to reveal what it is, but it's going to be different. And Tommy's been working on some cool thumbnails. We're getting better lighting. There's a lot of stuff going on here, guys. And this is only episode 3. Can you imagine episode 30 or 300? There's a lot going on.
Can you get the graphic down there at the bottom?
Oh yeah, the graphic. So today we're doing
Lead
singers of rock and roll. Yes, I have a hat on right there. I'm dead giving away my first one. But here's the thing. This might be one of those things where rock could. It depends on the genre of music we're going with, that some are just barely kind of in there, but we'll get to that when we do our picks. So here we go. I'll kick it off because it's pretty obvious. I mean, I think when you think about a rock and roll, rock, whatever you want to call it, hairband, there's a million different names. Whatever you want to say. I think a lead singer, there's prototypes to me and for me, because it's like the whole thing, right? Like it's the look, it's the unique voice. I always say that to me, an amazing lead singer of a band is someone that when I hear their voice, one bar, I know who it is, right? It's not to be confused with anyone else. And there's not many when you think about it. So for me, and it's not just because of the era I grew up in, I think Axl Rose, prime Axl Rose, even any Axl Rose I'll take, is to me the quintessential rock and roll lead singer. Could wear whatever he wanted on stage, could do whatever he wanted on stage. I've seen him in concert a few times. The way he lives his life, he's a bit of a recluse. Axl Rose for me, no question, that's my first one.
Excellent pick, man. When you think rock star, you think of all those early 90s Guns N' Roses concerts and late 80s, like that's right in the wheelhouse.
Paradise City, man.
What do you got, D? You're up. We're going this way.
Oh man, I mean everything you just said, I think you got to really lay the table out for rock.
So here we go. I'll kick it off because it's pretty obvious. I mean, I think when you think about a rock and roll, rock, whatever you want to call it, hairband, there's a million different names. Whatever you want to say. I think a lead singer, there's prototypes to me and for me, because it's like the whole thing, right? Like it's the look, it's the unique voice. I always say that to me, an amazing lead singer of a band is someone that when I hear their voice, one bar, I know who it is, right? It's not to be confused with anyone else. And there's not many when you think about it. So for me, and it's not just because of the era I grew up in, I think Axl Rose, prime Axl Rose, even any Axl Rose I'll take, is to me the quintessential rock and roll lead singer. Could wear whatever he wanted on stage, could do whatever he wanted on stage. I've seen him in concert a few times. The way he lives his life, he's a bit of a recluse. Axl Rose for me, no question, that's my first one.
Excellent pick, man. When you think rock star, you think of all those early 90s Guns N' Roses concerts and late 80s, like that's right in the wheelhouse.
Paradise City, man.
What do you got, D? You're up. We're going this way.
Oh man, I mean everything you just said, I think you got to really lay the table out for rock lead singers. And one thing obviously it's the vocals, right? The stage presence, the style, longevity, catalog. I mean, I got to go with Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones. I've seen him 3 times. I mean, even at 80, he still just wipes out everybody. So, I mean, if there's a Rushmore of fucking rock lead singers, Mick Jagger's got to be on.
And he might be on the left. He might be the first. Like that's kind of the way. I agree with you.
Yeah.
The style, the lifestyle, the just everything. Like he's almost like he belongs in like, and not due to age and all, like a museum of just like what was a rock star like in 1,000 years from now. They're like that was it.
That's it. He is along with Axl Rose. He is the prototype. I would even say like, not to trump you on this one, but like, I mean, Mick Jagger's the guy, man.
Yeah,
Mick
Axl doesn't exist without Mick.
Yeah, I agree.
The spandex, the whole, like, just again, do no wrong. He can come out,
right?
Yeah.
You know,
do no wrong. And what I've noticed too, and just to piggyback on the Rolling Stone and Guns N' Roses connection, when you see like a great band, it's usually like two of the members of the standouts, like the faces, the face of the team, like Slash, Axl, Mick, and Keith. Like two of the standouts, John and Paul. You know, it's like there's two standouts. So
it's usually the lead singer and the guitarist with mystique.
Or the drummer. Sometimes it's the drummer, right? In Metallica's position, it's the drummer, where it's the two. You know, in a couple of bands, it's the drummer. So that's two good ones. Tommy, what are you going with right there?
We have one little thing too.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tina Turner. Rest in peace, because Mick Jagger, he really got a lot of his inspiration from Tina Turner, man.
Oh yeah.
You got to
sure.
So
that's awesome.
For sure.
And
she technically she was solo too, but she just seemed to be all over, like, and in that era with Mick and like where she was, she like inspired so many of the rock men. Yeah, she's rock and roll, and people would, I mean, she's definitely rock and roll.
Definitely.
All right,
don't let those later stuff fool you. She's rock and roll. Go, Tommy.
All right, so my pick, I am going with the most mysterious kind of lead singer of them all, I think, and that's Jim Morrison of the Doors.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Morrison is kind of the quintessential cool, you know, had that kind of deep artistic poetry to his lyrics, would stand backwards, facing the crowd to his back, you know, just kind of a really interesting cat. And I think that, you know, he also has the death factor where, you know, he died tragically young. And I think that always kind of, oddly enough, it's so weird as people somehow, like, you know, when you die young in this entertainment world, your legacy just kind of sometimes will carry on because you never get to see them fall, kind of a thing. You never get to see the downfall. So I'd say Jim Morrison. And I think that there are so many other artists that have kind of copied that quiet, cool guy disposition that he had on stage. So Jim's my first pick.
Yeah. I think he was I became really noticed of the Doors in my teens, right? But even earlier than that, my uncle, who had really kind of moved down to kind of raise me when my father was gone and all that, he went to LA when he was, I think he left when he was 21. So, I mean, he died, whatever, but he was in LA when Jim was playing, and he saw him like playing with his back to him and like doing all that thing. And what he would tell me about it was there was no one doing what Jim was doing. Like, it was like you were watching something totally different. So you would go to the shows just to see, like, what is this guy going to do? What is he doing? I think what really helped later on for our generations, and Tommy, you're a little younger, is the movie, Val coming in and doing the movie. That kind of exploded the soundtrack and reintroduced people to the Doors. And they had like a real big moment in the 90s where they made they got a lot of heat, a lot of like pop, I mean, in the 90s, where that whole thing with the movies and all that, it was almost like this big resurgence. He was everywhere. And I went to Paris in like 2004 and, went to where he was buried and all. And it was just like this big resurgence. So yeah, he's, Kurt Cobain is kind of like that quiet type after that, right?
Is everybody in?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about Jim Morrison that I think is really cool, and obviously I might get some heat with certain real big music buffs, but can you fucking name anyone else in the Doors? No, you can't really. Can anyone name anyone else in the Doors? I can't.
Yeah,
I don't think the average moviegoer can. And to me, that's like the sign of a really strong lead singer. Like, Jim Morrison is even bigger than the Doors themselves, and that's kind of what it's all about.
I think he's one of those guys. They say when John Lennon was at his height, that his face was more recognizable than Jesus around the world. that he was the most famous person in the world.
That got him a lot of heat.
That got him a lot of heat. I think Jim is one of those guys where, like, you see a poster of Jim Morrison, there's not a lot of people on the planet who don't know who Jim Morrison is. We talk about it in wrestling. Like,
he was also, you know, a lot of these, you know, I hate to, I don't want to shame anyone, but a lot of these rock stars are kind of weird looking guys. And Jim Morrison looked like a fucking model. You know, he was a really good looking guy.
Before he went.
That
Shout out
doesn't
to
hurt.
Val Kilmer too, man, because he crushed that role. Should have been nominated for an Oscar for that role.
Should have won the Oscar.
Totally.
Who did it? He
didn't get
crushed
nominated.
Speaking of, I don't want to sidetrack here, but we might as well because fuck it, it's our show. Did Val ever win an Oscar?
No.
Doc Holliday, he didn't win for any.
If he should have got one for any, it definitely should have been The Doors, man. I mean, just the overall look, the appearance.
Guys, I'm going to jump on it. I'll do a quick check on that, but I don't.
No, I don't even think he was ever nominated. How about that?
Nominated, man. By the way, go check out his documentary.
Oh,
I just want to plug that real quick.
That's an amazing doc.
Never nominated.
Never nominated. That's crazy.
Shout out Val Kilmer.
That's crazy. Yeah, he was amazing as Jim. All right. For my second, again, I was talking about this earlier offline with Tommy, I have a death playlist. It's called When I'm Gone. I add to it every day. I've had it for years and years and years. It's up to like 27 hours of music. We talked about it. And I think that I always go through who's the most on my playlist, like who has the most quantity of song. Guns N' Roses, tons of them, right? And it usually, if you're on that playlist, you have to cover like, you could have like hard songs and you could also have like kind of soft songs. And I think about people who have impacted me, like their life, their kind of existence and their music. For me, Chris Cornell, his voice is so incredibly unique. What he did with Soundgarden, Audio Slave, like just his, and then his solo stuff, his
Temple of the Dog too, bro.
Temple of the Dog. That song on Temple of the Dog is with him and Eddie is absolutely outstanding. But just again, when the second he could just grab a guitar, sit down and play, and you go, that's the best song I've ever heard. He redid Prince's song that Sinead did. Yeah.
Nothing compares. Chris Cornell is so good.
So, and again, you know, back to that Batman line, you know, either die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become the villain. You know, I mean, that's the thing. Another person, you know, not 27, but, you know, past young. And just, again, handsome as the day is long, you know, it has it all, has everything, but the voice. At the end of the day, it's the voice. Not that he is the beginning of grunge. Not that he came out of Seattle and really was the first out of there. Just an absolutely incredible lead singer. So that's my number 2.
Man, I love Chris Cornell. He's probably in my top 5 of all artists of all time, man. I have to agree with you. His voice is amazing. He looks like a rock star. Man, I mean, and keep in mind too, man, he was, I mean, you got Soundgarden, you got Audio Slave, you got all the Temple of the Dog stuff, like, and plus his solo work, like,
the John Barbados campaign, he was the model for the Barbados campaign.
That I didn't know.
One of those deaths, man, that it really hit me. I think it was 2016, 2017 when he passed. It really hit me, man, and yeah, he had some great songs, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. What do you got, Dave, for your second?
I mean, since we're, you know, I'm gonna piggyback off you and go straight for the '90s. I had an opportunity to see this group in Florence, Italy, in a crowd of 50,000 people last summer. Anthony Kiedis and the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, nice pick. Nice pick.
When I tell you, when I tell you about energy and vibration, it's in a large field, standing room only. Florence, Italy, all Italians. My wife and I just jamming out to Kiedis, Flea, all those guys, man. Like, kind of like, they're a lot like the Stones, man. They're like the '90s version of the Stones. They got longevity. They're great songwriters, and they're still touring at 65, man.
And
Kiedis
he
is the man.
looks incredible. I mean, you talk about a guy who went through the ringer. And if you listen to a lot of those interviews he's done recently all over, there's some really great stuff out there. He just always kept himself like physically from the surfing and the working out and the running and the moving. He just looks amazing. And again, you talk about catalog. I always think about catalog, not like 3 songs, 4 songs, you know, the one-hit wonders. You're talking 30, 40.
So
Deep.
So
that's an amazing pick.
And they just blend the genres, man. I mean, like, they've got a little bit of everything. They got funk, they got soul, they got rock, they got hip hop. They've got it all, man. Like, it's hard.
And everybody loves them. Everybody loves the Chili Peppers. It's like, you know, all different people from all different genres that they love can cross into. And again, I know we're talking lead singers, but Flea with that great acting career, like, you know, there's just
Big Lebowski. He's in my all-time favorite movie, The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about rock star lead singers, like, it's LA as it gets, right? Like, a lot of the great bands came from Los Angeles along the strip and everything. Like, they personify Los Angeles, and yeah, man, that's my pick for number 2.
I like it.
All right. Well, for my number 2, D, you personified Los Angeles. We're going to go up north a little bit to Seattle. Kurt Cobain, to me, there's something about Kurt that has just like really, he's just become such a part of pop culture. You know, everything from, obviously, I'm a little kid in the mid-90s. So Nirvana and that whole grunge sound is just really something so different. And it just made you, it was counterculture and it was cool. And I don't know, Kurt's my guy. Excuse me. But yeah, I'd go with Kurt all the way. You know, everything from his just such a standout. I remember the Unplugged, MTV Unplugged, Kurt Cobain.
Green sweater. Yeah.
So fucking good. Yeah, he's just sitting there and like, again, you just said it. He looks cool in like an old lady sweater.
Yeah.
And he kind of invented
and his dresses. He'd come out in the dresses. He just looked cool no matter what he did.
There was this whole new style of fashion too, where like, you know, obviously everybody knows, you know, hair bands were so big in the 80s and early 90s, and then this grunge thing came and guys went from like, well, wait, we don't need to wear like elaborate costumes like we're fucking superheroes on stage. Like, I'm gonna wear a ripped up t-shirt or an old flannel shirt, a pair of baggy jeans, and just get on stage. So that became such a thing. So, you know, Kurt's such a trailblazer. And Theo, you said it, a great lead singer has that iconic, immediately you hear it, you recognize Kurt Cobain, there's nobody else. And again, he's got the death factor. We didn't get to see enough of him.
I think he was 27 too, right?
And how about the conspiracies that follow? You know, do you guys think he was murdered, or do you think he killed himself?
No, I think he took his own life. You could see in the journals. I followed it so heavy. I was right at the perfect age for grunge making its impact on the planet. And what happened was when grunge hit, it changed everything, especially if you were into rock and like the hair bands and stuff. Then it felt like uncool, right? Like almost when they did Disco's Dead at that baseball stadium, it was kind of like the same thing with rock, where you were like, wait a second, I love Guns N' Roses and I love all these bands, but what's this? And then though a lot of the guys were quiet at the beginning, guys like Chris and Eddie and Lane Stanley from Alice in Chains, but then Kurt was like the one who was really like almost like the Tupac of, like, he was aggressive towards the system, and he was talking a lot more and basically saying, fuck this and this music and that music. Sorry, I shouldn't be cursing, but it was like this whole thing. And I remember I was in my car driving in Staten Island when they put it on the radio that Kurt passed. And I like pulled over and I was like sobbing. And I was like a teenager. I was like, why is this impacting me so much? And I think it was probably exactly how people felt with Lennon, probably how they felt with Elvis, right? It was like that thing where you go, oh my, like he was a representative of this moment in time. It was right before the rap rock thing kind of took over and right after the kind of hairband rock and roll. So Kurt was, again, I know it's the death factor and all that, but you talk about catalog, you talk about music.
All I know is when I was a little kid, like I hated flannel shirts. My mom would always put me in them. And then the second that whole scene came on, I was all about the break out the plaid because it hurt.
Yeah. I would say something special too with Kurt is that it really transcended racial lines. Like, I mean, when grunge hit and when Nirvana hit, I knew a lot of homies, man, that was just bobbing their head that Smells Like Teen Spirit, that you didn't see that before. You know what I mean? It was like everybody was vibing with it. It's kind of like you said. It's kind of like the Tupac thing. It's like when you get that big and you have that type of star power, you transcend lines that, you know, it doesn't matter race, religion, culture. Yep. If you're great, you're great, and people are going to recognize that.
To everyone, and the thing is, it literally becomes like where it's just recognizing greatness, right? It's like, you know, and we'll do something with hip hop, but it's like, you know, it's like there's from soccer moms to the deepest, you know, hardest people I know in the corners of the world, Jay-Z. It's like everybody knows Jay-Z's great at the, you know, if not the best at what he does, right? Yeah. And it's like it's the music that stands out above it. And I think that what Kurt did was just, again, it's a world-stopping moment, and there's not a lot of those in the thing. In our journey that since we've been here. For my third, I would go with, again, unfortunately, it's someone who it was early. It was another moment for me where it took over. I had just gotten to LA, and when it hit, and Linkin Park with Chester Bennington was like combining like all the things that like I liked. It was like you had all this stuff happening of like the way the music went. And Chester had this like raw thing where I'm so attracted to passion, like true passion. Like I don't care what you do. If you like are passionate about it, I'm like all in, right? No matter what it is. Sewing, doesn't matter, right? Like I'm in. And when he would sing, you felt like he was like tearing his heart out and like throwing it to the ground. And it just made you feel a certain way. For me, and I still listen to Linkin Park all the time, there was a moment where, you know, all that stuff started getting like, I was like, man, is this hokey? Is this? And then you go, wait, the music just stands up, and it kind of came back. So I'm a giant Linkin Park mark. And I think Chester is one of the definitive, or was one of the definitive lead singers.
Hey, Jay-Z don't jump on the track with just anybody.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
You know what I'm saying?
He did 2 or 3 of them with them.
Yeah. No, definitely, man.
And those are some of his biggest songs ever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The Numb, Encore. Oh, come on, man. Michael Mann, Miami Vice, you know?
Yeah.
I love that pick. I think I got to go back for my number 3. I think I got to go back to the Sunset Strip. Let's say early 70s. And I don't know, because there's 4 members, but there's really 2 members to stand out, like we just discussed, and that's Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. Kiss.
Yeah, I was
the makeup, the wardrobe, the spectacle, the merchandise, the longevity, the tongue.
Yeah,
you know, like the whole thing.
The symbol, just the artwork of the tongue is everywhere. It's everywhere.
The branding, the marketing. I'll tell you what. I don't know that any band has ever branded themselves like this. That's a fact.
Yeah. I mean, Kiss, man. I mean, that
Scooby-Doo. They're on Scooby-Doo all the time. They're on Scooby-Doo all the time.
If you got little kids dressing up like you for Halloween, it's a good sign usually.
That's it, D. That's an amazing pick, because here's the deal. My sons are 6 and 8. They watch Scooby-Doo all the time. Kiss is on. Mm-hmm. They listen to Kiss. They love Kiss. And then Arlo, my 6-year-old, is always like, let me see the album cover. Let me see the cover. Let me see the artwork on Spotify, because it's like he's getting all the worlds of it. They look like action figures. He's seen them in the Scooby-Doo cartoons. He loves the music. And I've never been a giant Kiss fan, but I get it. I always say I get it. I'm not a big Grateful Dead fan, but I get it.
They're selling out stadiums. There's 80,000, 90,000 plus to come see Kiss, man. In any country in the world. You know what I mean? And also, we got to do our traditional wrestling tie-in. How about the Demon from Monday Nitro from WCW, late 90s, early 2000s?
That was a crazy gimmick, man. I remember seeing that and kind of being like, what's
God of Thunder.
There was
who was it?
Who was colliding?
You know what, Tommy?
I honestly don't remember his name. I don't know if the guy ever went on to do much aside from that. I think he was like one of those guys that was like the actual guy behind it himself. I think he was one of those guys who was like in the power plant, and they
And
kind of
didn't
just
Gene
did
have
it.
a lot to do with wrestling? Wasn't Gene like part of like he did stuff with wrestling or
Well,
something?
Kiss had a big tie-in with that whole storyline. They did a couple of I think they played a
Live
couple
shows
times.
and Nitro.
And then the Demon is also, not to get on a wrestling sidetrack, isn't what's his name's alter ego the Demon? That new dude in WWE.
Finn Balor? Yeah, Finn
Finn
Balor.
Balor, yeah. Finn
Different
Balor.
demon.
Different demon. but yeah, man, they were pumping out that track God of Thunder. I mean, what a great time to be alive, man.
Rock and roll all night, party every day.
Party every day.
Or
Rock City, baby. Detroit Rock City.
Detroit Rock. Yeah, and that
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie too, yeah. All right, Tommy, what do you got for you?
All right, for number 3, I'm going to go with the band from Boston, Aerosmith, Steven Tyler. To me, nobody, he's just on stage, shaking his ass, screaming, got the scarves coming down from the mic stand. Just when you think of a rock star, I mean, also another thing that I think Aerosmith really kind of keyed in on, their music videos were fucking great. And all of their music videos kind of helped to build that character of Steven Tyler as what I think of. To me, it's almost like if you handed me a paper and pen and said, draw what a rock star looks like, I'm probably going to draw a really thin, kind of androgynous type character, like a Steven Tyler, in the voice
long
too.
Hair,
long hair.
You're living on the edge, man. You're living on the edge. Hey, what about the tie-in with Run DMC?
Well,
and
not just and not just
the
tie-in, not just the tie-in. Think about how Run DMC saved their career. If you hear about it, they were done. They were finished. They had become mid-carders. They were done, and like that, when they got introduced, it was like, oh no, I don't know. And then they did it, and it brought them like way back into the main card slot again.
And you always got to appreciate a guy who's been able to pull the nose up in life. Steven Tyler's dealt with a lot of personal issues and things like that, and here he is today. Probably well into his 60s now, if not
way later,
70s.
way older. He was my neighbor for a year.
Okay, so well into, was he really?
Yeah, he was.
Did
my
you
neighbor.
ever see like Steven Tyler like taking the trash out? Was he like?
Yeah, I'd go walk the
dogs.
I'd talk to him. Yeah, I'd see him all the time. He always wore. I always thought it was a kick because he. I mean, if you look quick, you could definitely like mistake him for like your Aunt Connie or something when he's out there. Like, he just looks like you're like, oh, I would never think that he's the lead singer of But I'd seen him a bunch in concert, even when he was my neighbor, because we lived above the Hollywood Bowl up in the hills, and he. I always remember he'd wear those like water shoes, like like aqua socks.
Yeah.
He wore aqua socks all the time, and I thought that was fascinating.
What about the Aerosmith cameo in, I believe, Wayne's World 2?
Wayne's World 2,
nice
Aerosmith
cameo.
Also, too, piggyback off of what you said earlier, Tommy. The videos like that 1993, Crying,
Alicia Silverstone.
Amazing. They were all like one word titles. Amazing, Crying, but they had Alicia Silverstone and like Liv Tyler, obviously.
Yeah.
There were many movies.
Great, man. They were like
they won Video of the Year. That's when MTV was at its peak. They were like mini movies, and they blew up.
Yeah. Blew up. Second run, like a renaissance,
Yeah, you're right. That was like their second run. When you think about it, that was their second run, and all of a sudden they're going for like the heavyweight title. They were like Intercontinental before it. Now they're coming in.
And definitely the biggest run of the two, I think. And I mean, I wasn't alive during the late 70s when they came on the scene, but I mean,
his voice changed.
How about this? When I was like a teenager, there was a fucking Aerosmith video game for the PlayStation. Like they had a video game, so it's like. Yeah, it was like a first-person shooter that was Aerosmith based. So it's like they definitely got on that marketing train too.
Yeah,
they definitely did.
They always had really cool titles like Pump. Like they were like one-word titles for like some of their albums, some of their songs. So I just thought that was really cool.
Permanent Vacation.
Yeah, I went to see them in concert in 2000, I think 2. It would have to be 01 or 02 in LA, and I was blown away by the way he was running on stage and like running around. I was like, how is he doing this at that? He's not winded at all. Like he's just going back and forth and like not, doing cartwheels and stuff. And I was like, this is incredible while singing the whole time. I mean, he's the ultimate rock star. He'd be one of those guys that like when they do a prototype, You ask
He's,
like at GBT of like, you know, GBT,
Yeah,
like, give me a
build a
rock
rock star.
He's like America's version of Mick Jagger, and they're like America's version of the Stones. Longevity, catalog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Definitely. Yeah, I would definitely think. I would say the only difference would be that Aerosmith's a little more popcorn. Than Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Marty Scorsese really legitimized. Like, to me, every time I hear the Stones, I think of Scorsese.
Yeah. Give Me Shelter.
For sure.
I just
Painted Black.
Yeah, everything, and then also in what was it, The Devil's Advocate, when they played the Stones, right?
Sympathy of the Devil.
Yeah, Sympathy of the Devil. Yeah. For my fourth, let me think for a second. We're talking rock bands. I mean, I just don't think anybody's more rock and roll. And again, I know people might throw it in other categories, maybe pop or maybe whatever, but I think it has to be rock and roll for me. I think he's the coolest there's ever been. I think Prince from Prince and the Revolution is, I think Prince is, I listen to him every day. I think that he was an absolute, probably out of everyone we named, he's easily the most genius musician out of everyone. Played every single instrument, wrote everything, was in total control.
He's our Mozart. He's our Mozart.
Easily. That's a great comparison. He is talk about tragic. I mean, just everything. Funny. You know, obviously Chappelle gave that whole thing new life, right?
The sex appeal. The sex appeal.
Sex appeal is outrageous. Jamie Foxx does a great bit on that where he said he couldn't look at him in the eyes.
Look him in the eyes, did you?
Yeah. I mean, but the music. You're talking about just the music. Now, I was a big Michael Jackson mark, right? I'm a kid like everybody, right? At that time, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince. Prince was like outlaw. Like Prince felt more outlaw. And
Prince, to be honest with you, in my opinion, as I got older, Prince won. I'm just saying. It's tough, I know, but Prince won. I think when you take songwriting, when you take entertaining, instrumentalists,
Purple Rain, his movie is like an outrageously good film. He's you know, people talk about Eminem and 8 Mile. You're talking about Prince in Purple Rain is like, he doesn't miss a beat. I've worked with a million actors who don't have half that ability that he has, and he wasn't a full-time actor. He had a confidence that is unmatched, and I watch his interviews all the time. But his music, his way on stage, his control, I just don't.
We might catch a little heat on that, by the way, with the Prince Michael Jackson thing, but
it's fine.
I'm standing on it.
Yeah,
I think if you're talking musical listen, if you're let's just talk. I think Michael Jackson is, forget it. I mean, that's my childhood, but Prince, I'm talking like music.
I also know a lot of people that are just like, they're not even going to touch Michael Jackson because of all the scandals. So like Prince doesn't have that. Prince is like universally kind of loved. And I think the other thing about Prince that a lot of like casual fans don't realize, I've spent a lot of time with like, you know, professional musicians and studio musicians, and like a lot of like really pros consider him on their Mount Rushmore of guitar players, period. Like may have been one of the greatest guitarists of all time. So he's actually a rare character that's on. He could be on a couple of Rushmores. Like you could put him on a Rushmore.
And he always had a baddie with him. He always had a baddie with him.
Oh, like, Vanity changed my life, bro.
Vanity, Apollonia,
but Vanity changed my life. Vanity and Action Jackson changed my life.
Yeah, same, man. So and I think going back to what you were talking about, Chris Cornell. I mean, Prince wrote that song, Nothing Compares to You. So there you go, man.
That's
so cool.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote everything. He again, there's so many layers to Prince. So he's easily my fourth, no specific order.
And trip on this. They say he has like over 50,000 songs in his vault that he passed away with. That's still there. That hasn't been released.
Yeah, because you remember all those years when he went through the controversy when he named himself the Symbol and he did whatever because he was in that. I think it was Sony with the label. He was in that fight. With the label, and he was like, he apparently was still recording. He just wasn't releasing music.
Yeah. He's probably that guy that's like banging out, 30 tracks a night, man.
like
he's
can't
that
help
talented,
himself.
you know?
It's
So,
just all coming out.
I love that call, man.
Paisley Park, right? Paisley Park in Minnesota. That was
Park, yeah.
Apparently, he was a pretty sick basketball player too.
sick.
Who?
He could play some ball.
Absolute point guard.
Yeah,
like
5
had
foot something, 5'1".
an NBA size basketball court at Paisley Park.
They've got pictures of him pulling up, man. His form looks beautiful, man. Like that game, bro. Hey, you heard what Charlie Murphy said?
Yeah, Charlie Murphy said.
And
it.
wasn't he like 5'3", 5'4"?
No, I think even smaller.
The ball, I've seen that picture. The ball's like bigger than him.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, think about that. He's got the platform shoes, like, you know, he's got heels on. He's performing that every night, doing the splits, you know.
Oh, he's probably so fast too.
Yeah.
Bet you had crazy speed.
But he had all that pain from his hip. He messed his hip up really bad.
What a fucking G, man. Sorry, I know we're not supposed to cuss, but he's a fucking G. I gotta get
He's a G. Yeah. I miss Prince. All right, D, what do you got?
Number 4.
Man, this is tough. When I'm on the spot right here, but I mean, is the Experience considered a group? Jimi Hendrix an Experience? Would he?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I got to go with Jimmy, man. I mean, I probably stole that one from you, Danucci, but
it's okay. I got a backup.
All Along the Watchtower. I mean, look, man, this guy was selling out arenas in London before it was cool for an American artist to do that. I mean, a lot of his music is in movies heavily. I mean, from Under Siege to Point Break. I mean, he was just a rock star, man. Like the stuff he was doing with the guitar, the late '60s. I mean, if you look at that Woodstock footage of when he put on a performance with the Star Spangled Banner. I mean, Hendrix is that guy, man. To me, I personally think he's the greatest guitarist of all time. I still listen to his music pretty frequently. So yeah, I'm rocking with Jimmy, baby.
Man, I got so many great things to say about Jimmy. Everything down to the look, the persona. I mean, the guy just looked like a star. You know what I mean? Lighting his guitar on stage, on fire. Like you said, I agree, greatest guitar player of all time, but just most inventive. Like in terms of there are a lot of things that he kind of invented, like reversing the guitar strings and playing it upside down and left-handed and literally reversing the tracks. There's a lot of really cool like portions in his music and the way they produced his guitar tracks that other people went on to do. So true trailblazer. And yeah, man, I mean, I think also he's got the merchandise factor. I mean, I had a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt when I was a kid, you can't say enough great things about Jimmy, and he's got the legendary death factor. All these, when they pass away early, it's like, man, can you imagine what Jimi Hendrix would have done for like the next 30, 40 years of playing music?
Yeah, because he was already considered like the GOAT on the guitar when he was 25, and it's like, what happens when he's 40, 50?
Yeah.
Like, what is he creating with that guitar after that down the road?
Or even in the 80s, once like electronics become more of a thing, like what would that have sounded like,
Most definitely. And the urban legend is that supposedly, I mean, this is an urban legend, right? I don't want to get too deep on this, but he was supposed to be Robert Johnson reincarnated, which was the legendary blues player from the 20s from like the Crossroads in Mississippi. That was supposed to be Jimi Hendrix Jimi Hendrix was supposed to be him reincarnated, because Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul to the devil and became Robert Johnson, and then that transcended over to Jimi Hendrix. But whatever.
I love that story, whether it be true or not. That's a pretty
that's awesome.
That's a really rock and roll story too. So,
and let's get our wrestling tie-in really quick.
NWO,
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Think about that first lyric. I'm standing next to a mountain. I'm gonna chop it down with the edge of my hand. Like, how fucking badass is that? I'm gonna chop a mountain down with the edge of my hand.
Only real
mountain, guys. We're talking about a mountain.
Yeah, like Rushmore. Only real G's.
He's gonna chop the whole thing down with the edge of his hand.
That's what I'm saying right now. Is Jimmy's chopping the whole motherfucking thing down. That's how fucking great he is.
And when Hogan came out and Hogan's playing that belt and doing, I mean, whoever came, is that Bischoff or whoever came up?
That was Bischoff. Yeah, Bischoff still. I was listening to a show the other day. Bischoff said it was one of the best $100,000 he ever spent while running WCW was licensing that song. He got it for $100,000, and they could play it up to 2 or 3 minutes. as many times as they wanted in the intros. But yeah, it was a great deal.
Gee, move.
Yeah,
all right, guys, my batting cleanup on my Rushmore is going to be the number one, to me, when I think of like the 80s rock bands, I think of Metallica. So for me, it's James Hetfield. Hetfield kind of has that growly kind of voice that like everybody went on to copy, like literally everyone in the 90s that kind of went into that next kind of phase of music. They all copied Hetfield's voice. I love him as a lyricist. I think just a great songwriter. I know a lot of people think that he's a little prickly sometimes. He's had some issues about who he is as a person, but I'm not hanging out with him. We're not going to Applebee's
You're
on
just
a Friday.
Talking about the music.
I'm just listening to the music. So to me, I don't know. I love Metallica. A lot of people didn't like the Black Album.
No, everything after that.
Hey, that Inner Sandman used to knock, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like for everyone who's like, oh, they sold out on the Black Album. It's like, yeah, really listen to that album now and think about how many people have commercialized the tracks on that album. It's insane. And Nothing Else Matters. Honestly, Nothing Else Matters is a beautiful song. So for all the rage and rockin', like he wrote a pretty goddamn beautiful love ballad too. So
I'll say this, and I say this a lot. I think because I'm a giant Metallica fan, and Justice for All, Master of Puppets, all the early stuff. Sanitarium is one of the greatest songs ever written. Sometimes we make this mistake with bands we love and artists we love, and even we do this in movies too. Just because something's really great and it gets really popular, sometimes we kind of don't want to say it's someone's best thing, right? Like Juicy from Biggie, right? It's like that's an incredible track. And then, but people, if you say what's Biggie's best track, they almost feel weird saying it because it's so commercialized. Everybody knows it, right?
Yeah.
And Enter Sandman, for me personally, I was out after that album. I just kind of was off my Metallica phase because I did like the kind of station wagon rock that they were. I liked the really. It was a little more dangerous before that. After that, when everybody else started, for some reason, because I was young, I peeled out and wasn't really listening to them anymore. But it doesn't take away that song kicks ass, right? Like, and Nothing Else Matters kicks ass, and the album kicks ass. And I think that we sometimes, when we hear something a lot, whether it be Smells Like Teen Spirit, whether it be, Sympathy for the Devil, whether it be something we go, oh yeah, but I don't like that. I like this album to sound cool, but it doesn't take away how great that is. And I wish people would not do that so much because that happens a lot. And we almost don't give credit just because everyone likes it. That means it crossed over. It's really good.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's unfair that sometimes we knock an artist for just trying to evolve a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
I was in 8th grade, I think, when that album dropped, and it was like everybody would start slam dancing in like the mosh pit and everything. Like everybody, like motherfuckers would just get knocked out, man. It was that song in particular. I mean, I love like Master of Puppets. I love One, and Justice for All One is probably my favorite, but
Ride the Lightning out.
Another quick tidbit about them too is just like that first album. I think it was Kill 'Em All or whatever it was. They're 18 years old, 19 years old. Like these are teenage guys. They're kids doing this. So I mean, like, that always impressed me. There's a little bit of like anyone who can get themselves over at 18 years old, on that level, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, everybody on this list, on all our lists, they're all selling out stadiums, like 50,000 plus or more.
And if they were still alive, they'd still sell out stadiums.
Yeah, easy.
Just like how Guns, GNR, when they got back together, they're still selling out stadiums. Axl might look like one of the Golden Girls. It doesn't matter. They're still selling out stadiums. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Facts.
Because people know that you're going to see catalog, right? When you go, you're going to see. You're going to get 20, 30 songs you love, even if you're a casual. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's our rock. Let me put the banner up again. Wait. Our rock lead singers.
And guys, you know what everybody can do now? You know what they can do now? If you really like the show, we're going to go onto our Patreon and do an exclusive reverse Rushmore on
worst
the
lead
lead
singers
singers ever. So if you want to hear us talk some serious shit about the worst lead singers ever, hop on over to our Patreon, and we'll give you some of the, the foothills.
I mean, this is, I gotta admit, guys, this is a little different than Serials, man. We're gonna catch a lot of heat on this reverse one, man, just because
the reverse. Well, that's why you got to be on Patreon to know the reverse Rushmore. So we're gonna go do that. Listen, everyone, like, subscribe. More importantly, you got to subscribe. It really helps us with the channel. It helps us with YouTube. We're gonna be bringing tons of these on every single different thing you can imagine. So like, subscribe, share, and then if you want to see reverse Rushmores, and then also Tommy and I just put our most recent Tech Trouble video up on Patreon. Come over there and check it out. We appreciate y'all, and that's Rushmore.
Yeah, man.
Rock out, everyone.
Rock out.
Yeah. No, that's I love you. This is Rock Out. What am I doing?
Oh, yeah. What am I doing?
I'm doing the sticker. All right.
I'm doing the NWO /
Yeah, they get both of them.
Longhorns. I don't know.